I think my spirit team brought me here. That's an answer. The minute I was very honest with the spirit team that I really wanted to do it full time, the minute I tapped into that, knowing that this was my soul's calling, because nothing has ever ignited my soul more than helping other people to reconnect with their loved ones on the other side. This was something that I knew I was supposed to be doing. It's just organically developed. I started doing readings for friends, then they started recommending me, and then I would be getting those emails, messages, how much I helped people with their grieving process. And then I transitioned from various mentors, various development circles, and then I started including working with angels. I started incorporating different modalities. I truly believe I am always, and we are all always spirit-led.
Marta the Medium, welcome to FEAR Unzipped. Oh, I'm so delighted to have you here. You know, our mutual friend, Graham Norton, introduced us. He was a guest on the podcast. And I'm so glad that he did, because I feel like you are a friend for life. I just adore you. You have the most gorgeous energy, incredibly gifted, and I cannot wait to share your wisdom and your gifts with the FEAR Unzipped audience. So I want to give them a little background about who you are. You're a psychic medium, angel card reader, which I'd like to get into because I don't do a lot with the angel realm of things. I don't know a lot, but I do have a very interesting story. You're a spiritual teacher, host of the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast, which I was honored to be a guest on. So thank you for that. You empower others to awaken their intuitive gifts, connect with loved ones in spirit, and deepen their bonds with angels and spirit guides, which we all are looking to do. You hold postgraduate degrees, including a PhD in social anthropology. And Marta, I have a master's in cultural anthropology. So there's some synergy there, which I love. You blend academic insight with spiritual wisdom, which I also find is really important. That's why this is neuroscience meets metaphysics. I love that. You also are the creator of the Psychic Mediumship Foundation course, and recently hosted How to Be a Psychic Medium, a free international virtual retreat for spiritual seekers, which was a very big deal and a lot of work, I know, and it seemed to be extremely successful. So Marta, welcome to FEAR Unzipped.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Sandi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Oh, me too. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. I like to start with backstories. So can you tell us a backstory? Before you did all these magical, wonderful things, what was your life like before that?
I stepped into my power as a psychic medium as I was going through a very complicated divorce. I was in a very abusive relationships, and I decided to leave. And this is when I started hearing my grandmother in the spirit world communicating clearly with me. And this is how my abilities developed. So before I said yes to the spirit world, I used to work in academia. Well, my PhD, it took 6-7 years. And then I was a full-time mom. I started my PhD a day before my son was born, and he was an integral part of my fieldwork. I would take him everywhere with me. And then my daughter was born later on as well. So then I had 2 children. So I was basically being a full-time mom and doing my research. And yes, life in academia wasn't what I really was happy about. And I didn't leave academia because I didn't love learning. I left because I wanted freedom to speak simply and to serve people directly without really needing to impress anyone or perform. And something that has just popped into my mind is that I remember when I was preparing myself for my PhD bye-bye exam, and it was so important. It was part of being a woman. I truly believe I did that PhD for my ego. I really wanted to be, well, validated as a woman and to be heard for what I had to say and not for how I looked. So it was incredibly meaningful for all other reasons as well. But of course, doing the studies, being a mom, and then being in an abusive relationship, it is very complicated. But the awareness came later on. I wasn't aware initially that I was being abused. And I feel it's so important to share about it because there's so stigma about it. And we question people who don't leave earlier on. Why do they not leave? Did they not know about it? And I truly love to share my story because my relationship was like a drip, the poison. So he would poison me with various techniques of manipulation. So yes, this is a backstory.
No, it's a powerful backstory. And I know that drip, drip, drip. I mean, I've been fortunate enough not to experience that, but I know so many people that have. And it's that drip, drip, drip where you start feeling like you're crazy and you start getting gaslit. And can you talk? I mean, you're a really tenacious person to go ahead and get this PhD, which was very time consuming, very challenging, very important to you. Yet you had this drip, drip, drip on the other side, something, it probably was not a big support system, I can imagine. So you're kind of fighting that, yet determined to get that PhD. Can you give us kind of a feeling of what that felt like in that experience? And did intuition come in at any time during that?
I think I was fully immersed in my research that I wasn't paying so much attention to what was going on in my household. And then I was a full-time mother.
Yeah.
And because I do not have my family, well, I live in Scotland. I'm originally from Poland. So I had to do everything on my own, which means that I was the only person who looked after my children. There was no support network. So I don't think I had that awareness of what was going on. But definitely, since my children were born, especially since my first son was born, I was really realizing that I wasn't in a supportive relationship, that there was lots of jealousy, and that my ex-husband actually didn't want me to finish my PhD. And then I know when I decided to leave him, he also hid lots of documentation because he didn't want me to have my British citizenship, because he would tell me, the minute you are going to do your PhD, get citizenship, you are going to leave me. And this is what I did anyway. So I don't think I was devastated by being in that relationship because I'm a very resourceful person, and I would do whatever I had to do in terms of concentrating on my work. And I was so fascinated by my research, and then I concentrated on my children. So yes, that was my focus.
And what was your research in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, okay. So I worked with the Latin American community in Edinburgh, and then I really did research on their senses of belonging, homemaking processes. I am truly into people's life stories, so it was incredible that I was able to hear how they happened to arrive to Edinburgh. I was also examining people's sense of community and how they created those networks of support while being abroad. So basically, I looked also how various Latin American migrants maintained a connection to their homeland while actually building their new lives, and how they navigated that tension between personal identity and collective identity. And finally, what I love to come back to, how they craft belonging, not just through geography, nationality, but through relationships, daily practices, and emotional attachments.
Okay, that ties beautifully into the work you do now, but this is really interesting, Marta. I got my master's. I got involved with a Ukrainian community that happened to live in Oregon. I did the exact same thing. So I was embedded with them for a year, went to weddings, went to all their celebrations. I love ethnicity and people keeping their traditions and not, letting that melt away. So I think that's really important that we keep our traditions. Very interesting, very, very similar. We both did very similar things. So now let's fast forward to, how did you get to where you are today?
I think my spirit team brought me here. That's an answer. The minute I said yes, the minute I was very honest with the spirit team that I really wanted to do it full time, the minute I tapped into that, knowing that this was my soul's calling, because nothing has ever ignited my soul more than helping other people to reconnect with their loved ones on the other side. This was something that I knew I was supposed to be doing. It's just organically developed. I started doing readings for friends, then they started recommending me, and then I would be getting those emails, messages, how much I helped people with their grieving process. And then I transitioned from various mentors, various development circles, and then I started including working with angels. Then I started doing, I started incorporating different modalities. So yes, I truly believe I am always, and we are all always spirit-led.
I 100% agree with you. So was there a moment that you can remember that was kind of like a light switch that you thought, wait a minute, this academic thing is great, but it's really not my authentic self? And did something happen where you could hear a voice, somebody spoke to you, or how did you know that you had these abilities?
So as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, when I was going through a divorce, when I decided to leave that abusive relationship, I started to hear my grandmother. And I remember I was getting ready for one of the court cases, and I felt very, very low. And then there was this positive, very upbeat voice, and it was my grandmother telling me how much protected I was and how everything was going to be all right. And I just knew, I had that inner knowing that it was her. And then she started coming through in meditation. I started hearing her, seeing her, and really feeling her. She became one of my guides. And during the moments when I still doubted whether it was real, I remember I used to follow online one of the psychic mediums, and she was doing raffles for her followers who would buy her book. And I remember one day I was about to leave home to pick up my children, and I heard that voice, you have to take a picture of yourself and then post it because you're going to get a reading. And I'm like, this is just a silly idea. There's no way I'm going to get a reading. And then I wasn't able to watch, of course, that recording online because of the time difference. She's in the US. And then I woke up the next morning, and the first thing I heard is like, you have to go to that video and scroll to the end. And here there was that psychic medium then picking names of people who were selected for mini readings. And there was my name, and I was selected. And the whole reading that I got was about that person channeled my grandfather. So she arranged the whole mediumship readings for me to really believe in what I experienced for over a year or 2 years since she started coming through. So yes, I think that was undeniable.
Those are the moments I just love that you just can't, it's 100%. You can't deny it. And I think we really need to listen, even though some of us do try to deny even those, but that's just really incredibly beautiful, Marta. So how did you move forward because you do so many different modalities, how did that process move along? And you communicate with angels too. Can you tell us more about that?
So when I started developing as a psychic medium, when I was very honest with my spirit team that I wanted the right teachers to really appear on my path, I started attending development circles with different spiritualist churches and with different organizations. And when I first started channeling, I was only able to bring people's loved ones. I was not able to channel people's angels. And I would see angels. I knew they were there. And I had that inner knowing that I was meant to be passing messages from them. So I learned what I was supposed to learn from those development circles. And then I set another intention that I really wanted to get to know my angels. And I found another teacher. His name's Kyle Gray, and I've been in his angel team for a couple of years now. And I started getting to know vibrationally various angels. I developed very strong relationship with them. And because I read the way spirit world wants me to read when I do my readings, I'm able to bring now, during my readings, loved ones on the other side, angels, spirit guides. I am not restricted. I have that freedom. So yes, that's how it started. And then it's been always my spirit teams, my spirit guides who have been telling me that, okay, you are going to be doing this and that now. And of course, we negotiate. They're my best friends, but they're very, very persistent. And I'm very clairaudient and I hear things clearly. So what they do with me is they talk over and over until I do something. So this is how they've been approaching me. So they told me a couple of years ago, you're going to be doing past lives now. And I was like, there's no way I will be doing past lives. I know nothing about it. And they said like, no, we know everything. You're just to channel. And then the next morning, 2 friends of mine independently contacted me and asked me whether I could do past life for them. And then people started contacting me. So everything that I do is spirit-led. And it's the same with me being online, with me having Instagram account, with me having podcasts. Yes, my spirit guides are behind it.
That's something that I really relate to because that's how this Fear Unzipped came to be. It was never something that was in my thought, my mind of doing a podcast, but they very clearly told me I was doing it. They told me the name. And I mean, there was a point where I just said, yes, okay, I'm going to do this because I really did feel the support. So when they come into you, I mean, a lot of people like to know, are you hearing them? Like I'm talking to you. Do you hear the actual voices? Is it a knowing that you get? How do you communicate with them?
With my spirit guides,
yes.
Or with, well, I hear them internally. I can sometimes hear them externally, but this is when they shout at me and they call me Marta. So that's when I'm really not listening. That can come externally. But it basically happens in my mind internally, and I know it's them because I also vibrationally know I'm able to distinguish whether it's my particular loved one in spirit, whether it's an angel or a spirit guide. So I feel them, but then I also see them in my third eye. So it's a combination of various clairs.
Oh, that's brilliant. So when angels come in, how does that manifest? So you feel a vibration, a certain vibration, but do you physically see something?
I see everything in my third eye, because when I first started opening up to the spirit world, it was something completely out of my comfort zone, because I would see spirit with my naked eye. I would have random people's loved ones in spirit in my corridor. I would have spirit poking me during various moments, and I was scared of it. And with the right mentors, they taught me that I can establish strong boundaries with the spirit world. And so I said that I do not want to see spirit externally. So then they brought it all to my third eye. So I'm able to see them internally. But in terms of angels, it is the vibration, it is the feeling. It is just completely different. But I'm also able to see them internally.
Yeah. Angels are interesting to me because that's not an area that I ever even explored. I knew that I had some mediumship abilities, psychic abilities, which I believe we all have. But I had an incident with Archangel Raphael who was not in my knowing at all. And I was in a mediumship circle. It's actually Graham's. And he came in, very clearly came in. It is a vibration. It is a feeling. And he was sitting next to me. And Marta, I had the most unbelievable vision that we're sitting together and we're looking at the earth. So we're sitting away and we're seeing the entire earth spinning. And there are billions and billions of sun cards that are falling onto the planet. It was so beautiful. And I could see people in different garbs and different ethnicities picking up. There were cards for everyone. So nobody was fighting over a card. Everybody was picking up a card. And when they picked up the card, they felt nurtured and they were healed. It was the most, and I can feel it right now. I can feel it. And Raphael said to me every day, he brought something forward that I send healing and nurturing frequencies to. What I say is I send healing and nurturing frequencies to myself and to every inhabitant on this glorious planet and to Mother Earth herself. And so it is. And he said, I want you to keep doing that. And I kind of spread that out a bit, and people really picked up on it. And it was a frequency that I've never experienced. It was so beautiful and so pure and so filled with love. And when I was sending love and healing out, it was not just to inhabit. When I say inhabitants, I mean rocks, and I mean leaves, and I mean every animal, insect, everything. So it's everything that makes this glorious planet. So that was my introduction. And then he'd come in and channel a little bit through me. But that was very surprising to me. And I wouldn't have believed it if I wasn't in a nurturing situation where people confirmed that's what it was. So thank you for letting me share that with you, but it was profound. That was profound for me. And the Sun card in tarot holds a very, very dear meaning to me. And it's a beautiful card. So are there some examples that you can share of with people meeting hearing from their loved ones, or are there some examples that really stand out to you where you knew you were making such an impact on people's lives? And I know you do.
I've received so many emails and so many messages throughout the years. And even if I haven't, I know I've helped so many people, because when we really tapped into our sense of service, we don't seek anymore so much validation. But I don't think I would be able to find one particular example of changing people's lives. What I could mention here is that because I have been openly sharing about my personal story with losing various loved ones, especially sharing the story of losing my mom in 2022. She crossed over. Then people have realized that I'm a medium, but I'm also a human being. I can also grieve. I can also experience all of those dense, complicated emotions, and then I can still channel. And throughout the years, I have developed the most beautiful relationship with my own mother. So me sharing how I communicate with my loved ones, how they are part of my day-to-day life. This has helped so many people to actually start communicating with their own ones. So I think that's been the biggest shift by me sharing vulnerably about my own connections with my loved ones.
When I was on your podcast, the Perfectly Imperfect podcast, you told me a story about your mom. Can you share, because it was such a powerful story when she was transitioning?
When she was, and there are so many miracles in this story. Well, I have to mention first that my mom got into a coma a month after I got married. It was in 2010, and I remember I was at work. I used to work for Visit Scotland, Scottish Tourism Board. I received a call from my father that my mom was in a hospital dying. It was out of the blue. I wasn't really prepared for that because she was fine. And then I remembered, because I have very developed analytical brain, but also I always had a relationship with God and with my guardian angel. And so I prayed, and I also looked for a particular saint that I could pray to, because I really wanted to get a sign. I really wanted to find out whether I wanted to keep my mom for my egoistic reasons, or whether Spirit World really wanted me to fight for her. So I asked Padre Pio to give me a sign, and a day before I flew to Poland, a friend of mine invited me for a dinner, and as I was leaving her home, out of her wallet fell a picture of Padre Pio. So this is how it all started. And basically I managed to find one doctor in Poland. He was giving any chances that my mom would survive, and with the right brain stimulation and so many other things, she woke up and she continued being alive for the next 12 years. It was the most, well, beautiful, but also extremely challenging period of the time, because throughout the years her health started deteriorating, and I had to learn how to grieve the absence of a person while she was still in a way physically there. So now moving to her transitioning in 2022, 2 weeks before her passing, she came to me, she visited me in telepathy. She impressed me with an image of her holding me just after giving birth, and she explained the way she could how much she loved me and how much she was sorry for everything that she did to me. And we had the most beautiful 2 weeks. I did not see my mom for 4 years before she crossed over, because I was very, very upset with the whole situation, and also I was going through my own divorce. But basically, in telepathy, I would sit by my mom's bedside in the hospital and I would communicate with her. She was very scared of crossing over because of emotional abuse and various things that she did to me. And also in general, she was scared to cross over. And I really was able to explain to her that our loved ones, so her loved ones, would be greeting her, because I could see so many loved ones, her grandmothers by her bedside. And she was really holding on to life, because she wanted to ensure that while I was going through my divorce, that children and I would have a place to live. And I ensured her that, oh, don't worry, Mom, like, you can go now. I'll be fine. We are going to find something. And so, like, she transitioned, and I had that deep knowing that after I released her, there's nothing I could do. And I bought a dress for her funeral 3 days before she crossed over. And deep down, my human self thought, like, oh, maybe I'm not going to buy that dress, because if only she could, like, stay here, if only there was anything that I could do. But I knew I had to buy it, because I knew that the minute she crosses over, I would be devastated. And so, yes, we had the most beautiful 2 weeks of forgiving each other, releasing anything that was dense. And then after she crossed over, she wasn't able to communicate with me during the first 3 months. She had to really feel the pain that she caused to me. She went through a very complicated life review, and then she started communicating. And right now, she's my best friend. She is the mother on the other side, the mother that she was not able to be in this lifetime. So she's part of my day-to-day life now.
So yeah, I get chills when I hear that. I hear from a lot of people that they're closer to their parent after the parent has transitioned, that the parent realizes, they're in another place and they are just full of love and support and nurturing. And how beautiful is that? Did you as a child, did you pick up on these sorts of things? Was your mom intuitive or psychic, or did you ever talk about these abilities when you were younger?
Mm-hmm. I never did talk about those things. I didn't even know psychic mediums existed. I had absolutely no interest in those things. I only recall one situation when my grandmother went to someone to get a reading, but then everyone laughed at her. But there was a beautiful message, and I remember because my mom shared, they mentioned that I am going to be a forever student and that I will be traveling and changing countries. And it did happen. But no, well, I believe my mom was very intuitive, but then because of the difficult relationship that she was in with my father, she didn't use that intuition so much. But then my maternal grandmother, she's very psychic. She's got mediumistic abilities, but she's not aware of it, or maybe she has never accepted that. So no, I've never had those conversations, but tracing things back since I've become aware that actually I am a psychic medium. Well, I know that I could always see spirit. I could feel spirit. I know that I always knew when various loved ones would cross over. I would always go to see them. I would always fund them. I would be picking up on energies of other people around me. Yes, so many things always were part of my life, but I wasn't aware they were not part of everyone else's life.
It's interesting to step back now and look back at your childhood and go, oh, now I get why I was so anxious or why I had these feelings. It's really, it's like watching a movie of your childhood, because I too had the abilities, but I was a scared kid. I was just a scared person most of my life. So I was a scared person, but I did things that were fearless a lot, which was just a strange dichotomy. So you said you're analytical. How do you balance the analytical, like the left brain and the right brain? How do you keep that balance?
Well, I think mediumship keeps me in balance, because when I am channeling spirit, then I'm not overthinking. I have to set my ego aside. I work closely with my spirit team, so they take all of my thoughts, emotions just before I start readings, and then I can come back to it. So there is no tug of war in terms of analytical brain and then yes, that intuitive brain when I'm doing my readings. But I think the fact that I am connecting on day-to-day basis with my own spirit team, with my own loved ones, and then like for other people, that allows me to have my life balanced. And then in general, not only, I'm also Taurus if we talk in terms of astrology. So I'm a very, very grounded person. I'm very down to earth. If you can be a down to earth medium, I call myself to be one. So I am still living in this reality. I am still aware of what's going on around me. I have so many grounding practices, so many things that I have not added because I am a medium, but I have always been enjoying doing. So I think they support my life.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. I find, because I think I'm really down to earth as well, and I love science, and I love the balance of science and metaphysics, and I love how it's merging more and more, which I'm sure you're seeing as well. It's nature, nature is like yesterday, it was so interesting. I just felt like I was working in my office and I thought, I have to be outside. It was like a drug. My feet had to be on the grass. And then I was sitting, 2 days ago, I'm sitting at my computer, and I had the vision of swinging on a swing set when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Sandi, you have to go do that. And I got in my car, I drove like 30 miles away, and I knew of a beautiful park, got on the swing set, and was just swinging through the trees. And I just, and that's the stuff I think is really important. I think since we're human, we need to be human, and we need to experience all our senses. And if you feel like you're getting really, really deep into the spirituality of things and feeling constantly, the unknown, feeling the veil, what's beyond the veil, I do think it's really important, Marta, to ground yourself in some human joy.
I love it.
What is your feeling about being a spirit in a human body? How do you combine that, being human, enjoying that humanness, and also your spirituality?
Mm-hmm. Well, first thing that comes to my mind, because now I have my Psychic Mediumship Academy and then I mentor other students. And whenever they ask me, how, Marta, do I develop my clairs? And then my answer is always, you have to live your life to the fullest. You have to experience life, try different food, travel, expose yourself to various things. So I think this is one thing that keeps coming. Yes. Yeah, sorry.
I love that, Marta. No, I love that, because I had a guest on, Richard Knight, and he said, because he's a tarot reader and very, very well known, and he said his best advice that he received was, whatever it is that you do passionately, because you're so passionate about what you do, find something else that you're also passionate about. Maybe it's painting, maybe it's horseback riding, maybe it's cooking, but get yourself immersed in something completely different than that everyday passion, talking to your guides and talking to your clients. And I think that's great advice. Oh, I just lost you.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
You can. Oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe it's the spirit world who muted us.
Can I tell you, that happens all the time. There's flashes of light. The other day, when I was interviewing somebody, I was talking about a past life that was coming up, and I knew that I'd been hung, and I was talking about, my throat gets constricted. I started losing my voice and I lost my train of thought. I said, oh, what was I going to say? She goes, that was spirit coming in at that moment during the podcast saying, you don't need to relive that. And I was losing my voice. In fact, I'm having trouble, but my voice is kind of raspy in this one too. I think there's a lot of energy right now. I can feel it. There is a lot of, you have your guides, I have my guides. There is so much beautiful, positive, swirling, nurturing energy right now. I can absolutely feel it. Are you feeling that too?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I could see lots of orbs of flashing light before I connected, and I can feel the presence. So yes.
Yes. And that's something that I love. And I say that so listeners are going to be brought right into that space. And there's always magic that happens because you are of such a high frequency, and it's just, it's, oh my gosh, it's my greatest joy. It's just my greatest joy to be able to do this, to talk to people such as yourself, Marta. So tell me, if I were to come to you and I didn't know anything about any of this, and I really was desperately needing to connect to a loved one that passed, how do you go about doing that with me? And let's say I'm a real skeptic.
Well, so if you were to come for a reading with me, well, first of all, I truly believe that, you mentioned that, let's say you're a skeptic, but then you have a desire to connect with your loved one. And I truly believe that opens up the possibility to connect with your loved ones. It's all about setting that intention. It's a three-way communication. I truly believe during the readings, I am able to shift the energy of the person that I'm reading for by bringing their loved ones, and then by bringing them the evidence in terms of a memory of something that opens up their heart and allows them to really trust that what they are experiencing, it is real.
And do people tell you when they do connect with a loved one like that, it's got to change their life because they know that loved one is with them at all times? So do they share with you later on, maybe weeks later, months later, that they can now tap in with their loved one and they feel connected?
They do, because what I don't want to happen during my readings, I do not want my clients to be dependent on my services. And I always try and equip my clients, students, with certain tools that they can choose to include into their toolbox in terms of how they communicate with their spirit team. And when it comes to communicating with our loved ones, I truly believe that you do not have to be a medium, that every single person is able to communicate with their loved ones. There is that heart-to-heart connection. Of course, our loved ones are not physically here, but energetically they're still next to us. So always towards the end of my readings, I give one or two pieces of advice of what I would love for my clients to do. And then, yes, they get back to me, and then they do share some of the signs, synchronicities. And I have so many clients who were not on social media, but because they know that I do so many free readings, I do so many free events, they even open up their various social media accounts. And so it's not only they come for a reading, but then they are able to read my posts, listen to my lives, because what I'm trying to do while being online is to help people to connect with their loved ones. I'm trying to normalize that connection. So yes.
You're very generous that way, Marta, that you do live readings a lot. You did one for me recently. I was on one of your live calls, and you're very, very generous. So if people want to connect to you, it's very easy to get so much information from you online. So I do encourage that. What advice would you give people to help open up their intuition?
I would set an intention again that I'm ready to open up. But in terms of intuition, everything starts within and everything finishes within. So I would encourage people to get to know their energy, to get to know their feelings, emotions. And by them being able to recognize how they feel, what are their thoughts, they will be able to be so much more in tune with their intuition. So I think I would start from becoming aware of what's going on inside of your energetic bodies, and then trust whenever you feel that this is your intuition guiding you, whether you've got that gut feeling, whatever we call it, that this is actually real. And then if you're skeptical, I would start writing down all those examples and the moments when you actually listen to the voice, listen to the intuition, and things actually happen the way, in your favor. And then you're going to be able to feed your analytical mind with the evidence that this is all real.
Yeah, I get something, I call it divine queasiness, when when I really get a huge intuitive hit, my body goes into this. I really can't. It's something I can't describe, but it's a queasiness I get inside, but it's divine. So, and I always listen. It's interesting. Signs are huge for me, and I'm sure they're big for you too. And I'm sure you share that with your clients, to look for signs. And I get signs all the time. And I'm sure you too. Can you think of a time when you got a sign where you just went, whoa, that's amazing?
Well, my loved ones all the time keep sending me signs, and I think I've been sharing about my mom, who has now started hijacking other people's radios. So my mom used to be a fan of Tina Turner, and whenever I don't listen to her, because our loved ones still have the same personality, and of course I'm a psychic medium, but sometimes I choose not to listen to my mom when she's got an opinion about certain aspects of my life. She's very, very persistent. So she interferes with my radio, with my playlist, and I keep hearing Tina Turner, and I know it's her. But recently, my friends started contacting me, Marta, your mom is with me. I keep hearing Tina Turner everywhere. Like, could you start listening to her? I switch on the radio. I go in my car. There's Tina Turner. So yes, spirit is very, very powerful, and our loved ones are able to really find their ways to be heard. So definitely the fact that she's able to now get other people's attention, and I shared that as well, that I did a live with one of my teachers, Lara Wells, just before that How to Be a Psychic Medium retreat, and my mom came through during the live. And I, of course, had to listen to the message because I was hosting it. So I wasn't able to go up live. So,
And what
I
did your
find it funny.
well, they have a great sense of humor. What did your mom want to tell you during your live?
Well, she was later on coming more in visitation and in dreams, and it was something to do with the personal life and something very, very private that I didn't want to listen to. So she just wanted to share her opinion. But basically, after that, I told my mom, okay, I'm going to listen to you. And what I frequently do, I shared that story before as well. My mom used to have her favorite coffee. It was Golden Lavazza. So I buy it sometimes. I prepare myself a cup of coffee. And when the weather is nice, then I sit in the garden and she sits next to me and then I listen to her. So basically, we had a cup of coffee and we had a conversation in the garden. We talked things through.
It's so beautiful. So you have just a beautiful relationship with your mom now.
Yes.
Oh, how gorgeous. I had a dream the other night, and my dad is a person who passed and was with me from the moment he passed. I see him all the time. And he's just adorable. In fact, when you did a reading for me online, my dad came in. Of course, my dad came in. And the other night I had this dream and my dad's there. And I said, oh, Dad, this is great. This is great. I know you've transitioned. So I got a pad, a paper, and a pen. I wanted to ask him a bunch of questions in my dream. I said, Dad, are you my guide? He goes, well, of course I'm one of your guides. Yes. It was so clear, Marta. It was as if I'm talking to you right now. And it delighted me. And the next thing he did was he put on the table for all of us, there were a bunch of us there, a giant ice cream sundae. It was the size of a boat. And that was my father, very, very generous and very loving that way. So these things are just, they're really beautiful, and they give us so much strength. I find it gives us so much strength. I really love hearing the stories. And you're an evidentiary medium, so you will tell people very specific facts, it sounds like, about their loved ones, rather than saying, oh, your grandmother loves you so much. You go into more detail, I assume.
I do, and that's why I called in the right teachers to be able to teach me. But what I have to say is that I'm a free spirit. and I didn't want to be part of any organization, any church, because, well, I can see the benefits of being trained in a particular way, but for me, evidence comes in different forms. And I've learned a lot while being trained in spiritualist churches, but what it also did, I truly believe that it closed my intuition, because I was still using my analytical brain during readings, because there was an expectation that I had to bring evidence in a particular order. I had to first share whether it was a male, female, how old they were, what was their cause of passing, relationship, and then I was able to move on to the message. Whereas throughout the years of doing the readings and connecting with the spirit world, I know that it is the spirit world who are able to choose what is that evidence, what is that one fact, one memory that is going to make the client believe that this is all real. So yes, it is evidential, but I really love to leave it to the spirit world to decide what is it that they find evidential, as opposed of me trying to control the spirit world.
Marta, that is such excellent advice. And I think it's great to be trained to work with mentors. I think it's great to have people help you. I also feel it's extremely important that you do it your way, because everybody's unique. Everybody's going to listen to their guides in a different way, get different kinds of messaging. It's going to come through very differently. I get chills a lot, and then I'll start sweating. I lose my voice as I'm losing it a little bit here. But oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much energy right now. And it's so happy. I think my guys are just so happy that we're having this conversation. I do. I can feel it. So that's really important. I hope that listeners really pick up on that it's great to learn from somebody, but never, I always say, don't ever think that you need somebody else to be who you are. You don't need to constantly call somebody and go, okay, am I doing this right? Is this right? Do it. And those, what I call gurus, and I really do not, I do not support that. If somebody says to you, you have to use me, I'm the only one that can open up that door for you, then I would run so far in the other direction, because you're just as gifted as anybody else. You just need the dusting off of your gifts. That's what I say. It's like under dust, you just get a little brush, and your mentor, like somebody such as yourself, can help dust that off for them. But then they go fly.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so important. Is there anything else that you feel is really important that we should be sharing about connecting, about anything that's beyond the veil that would help a person who is just starting to do this?
I think you've touched upon that a little bit. I want to, mention again that spirituality should be joyful. Spirit wants us to live fully, love, dance, explore, and also we're not here to tiptoe through life afraid of mistakes. So that's one thing. But I truly believe, as a psychic medium, that you, and as a person who lost various loved ones, you can at the same time grieve the physical loss of your loved ones, and you can still have fun in life. And this is what I tell my students as well, or I always set an intention when I do my readings, that of course I want to do the service to the spirit world. I want to do justice, because they don't have a voice box, and I want to be able to represent them the best I can. But also I always set an intention that I want those sessions to be magical and joyful. Because whenever we allow to bring those childhood memories or something fun, because there's no suffering and pain on the other side, then our vibration changes. And this is what Spirit wants us as well to realize, that you do not have to be sad. They're not suffering. They have not missed anything what's going on in your life. They're still part of your life. So have fun while connecting with your loved ones. angel guides, keep asking for signs, because spirit world is very creative in terms of how they are going to will be bringing you all of those signs, and allow the magic to be part of your day-to-day human experience.
That beautifully said, Marta. Absolutely beautiful. We're almost to the end here, which is, I always say that's just crazy. But I do have some questions that I ask everybody. So may I ask you these questions?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
The first question that I have for you is, what is your number one go-to strategy to help you with mental distress? So if you're a little uptight, what do you do in that moment to shift you?
Well, I lift weights at the gym every day, and then I exercise. So I'm really connected to my body, and that allows me to shift the energy, and it allows me to feel so much grounded. So I don't have many of those moments. But if I was to give advice to anyone who might get anxious or maybe overwhelmed, definitely grounding yourself, standing on the ground, connecting with Mother Earth, and returning to your breath without needing to change the breath, just coming home.
Beautiful. I lift weights every day. It's very grounding for me. I call it my church. My gym is my church. What is the best piece of advice you've received in life, personally or professionally, or one of the best pieces of advice?
Since we've touched upon my academic background today, I remembered I had the most beautiful internal examiner, and normally I just don't share the names because I really want to be approachable, and the way I speak even on my social media, I want to be understood by masses. But yes, Professor Nigel Rappert. I remember when I was searching for an external examiner, and I really wanted initially to have an examiner. Well, I basically gave him the name that someone recommended me. And then he said, okay, if you want to have a very complicated exam, then go for her. But if you really want to have a really beautiful conversation, you should go for a person who's, first of all, okay, established with the body of work, someone also who's not too old, because you don't want them to die. You still need references. But the most important thing is, he said, is make sure that they're kind. Make sure that they operate with their heart space. And this is the best advice that I have received. And this is what I try, to teach everyone, but I also try and embody that.
You embody that 100%, Marta. You can feel that all this comes from your heart. And I think that's why I really connect to you. You're absolutely a delight. What does a successful life look like to you?
I truly believe that I feel so successful right now. I feel when I'm tapped into my soul, when I'm tapped into my heart space, then I feel fulfilled and I feel successful. So being able to be a free spirit, being able to co-create with spirit, being able to not limit myself in terms of where I'm heading, what am I doing, allows me to feel happy and allows me to experience life with all its magic. Yes, that's my success. And the fact that I have been able to call in so many like-minded people who also operate with their heart space. And because I have beautiful children, for me, that's success.
Oh, I'm with you so much on that. And I just have found, just doing Fear Unzipped, I brought in so many beautiful people that are exactly like that. And I think that was part of the whole bringing this to fruition. I know that was part of it, because I really wanted that kind of community. Okay, that's the last one. Complete this sentence. In the past, I was, and now I am.
I was scared. I was playing small. And now I feel expansive, and I am fulfilled and happy.
So beautiful, Marta. I'm so happy for you. I'm so glad that you came full circle to that. Now, can you tell us where anybody can find you?
Okay. They can find me on Instagram at Marta the Medium. Then I also have a YouTube channel, Marta the Medium, and then my website is martathemedium.com. And as you've mentioned, I also have that Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast, and you can find the audio version of it on Spotify and Apple, but then the video version is available on my YouTube.
Oh, beautiful. Also, we put all of that in our show notes. So people, if you didn't write that down, they're going to have all that information, all the links on how to get to you. So, and the last thing I'm going to say, because I've been saying this lately, is that if people, listeners, are enjoying these conversations, to please leave testimonials and reviews. And you know how important that is, Marta, right? Those 5-star reviews. And oh my gosh, I welcome them. Marta would welcome them as well. I know. They fill my heart. I read everything and I so appreciate it. Oh my gosh, I so appreciate it. I appreciate this community so much. Marta, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Loved spending this time with you. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Sandi, again for having me on the podcast. And I enjoyed our conversation as well. And thank you to all of the listeners and your beautiful community. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Sending lots of love to you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.